Hello, everyone, and welcome to our conversation. This is a conversation with me, Teresa Riley, and Charlie Summer. Charlie Summer is the founder of the Madonna Ministry and has been a huge supporter of the ministry throughout its life. Uh, what I want to talk about today is Charlie's journey into spirituality, how he found the ministry, and I also want to touch on his book. He's just written a memoir. He calls it ep.1. Um, so I'm sure there's more to come. So before we get started, Charlie's requested a prayer. So I will start a prayer, and then Charlie, if you want to add on to it, we'll make it like a round.
Thank you.
So, Mother, Father, God, we come to you humbly with a request that we be spiritually guided, that you guide our hearts, guide our thoughts, guide our conversation, so that people who are listening today may see some of themselves in our conversation and be able to relate to our words, our thoughts, and to relate to you through us. Okay, Charlie, you take it.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. You are definitely a good friend and a long-term member of the Madonna Ministry. And it's my delight to be here to share with you my journey. And my hope is that somebody else out there will benefit from our mutual stories, not just mine, because every event that moves us into a higher state of consciousness is what I call spiritual growth. Spiritual awareness, we're all spiritual beings. Everything that is created is only created from one source, one life, and one spirit. But it's taken me quite a while to understand that process of knowing that God indwells in us as us. And to the extent that we honor that indwelling presence, uh, we're able to function more freely in a joyous and peaceful way, even through chaos, through calamities, and all kinds of illnesses. We're able to find that stability. It's like Jesus calming the waters on the boat. And what we are doing is calming the waters within our emotional being by recognizing that we are eternal beings, that we are forever, and ultimately nothing of value is ever lost.
Very nice, Charlie. That's a good way to start. Now, when we talk about your book, you talked about you found spirituality really in the midst of chaos when you decided to begin doing a meditation and a yoga practice. Can you talk about that? How you found that and how it helped?
Yeah, thank you. Like so many people that are in their early 40s, it's not unusual for us to have a questioning or a spiritual awakening or something nudging us to understand the depth and meaning of life. And when I was doing, I had, I had achieved pretty much all the financial success with a custom home, living in a beautiful community, having nice cars and toys, that I began to find on public broadcasting in the morning Richard Hittleman was teaching yoga. I knew nothing about yoga, but I decided to take a look. So, well, my wife is fixing breakfast for our three boys. Um, I would lay down a beach towel in front of the TV and learn to do yoga. Richard Hittleman had two instructors, both attractive women. One was doing advanced poses and the other was beginning poses, so you could join in on them. Well, of course, I like to see the attractive women, and I, and Richard was just who would give the instruction, was probably at that time probably 50 years of age. So I would lie down on my mat, and he would take us through different poses, and I would just imitate some of the stretching. And this went on for maybe a couple of years, and then something happened where in the meditation or in the yoga practice, we're learning to use prana, or what he called life force. And the life force is the spirit within life itself. And so he was showing us how we can direct that life force. And I developed a tumor on my left hand near the bottom of my thumb, and it frightened me. And so much that because I had a history of skin cancer. Anyway, it frightened me. And so I went to obtain a large life insurance coverage. And I know I was examined by the doctor, that unless I pointed it out, the tumor, he would not know it. So I did disclose it to him. So I applied for the insurance. Meanwhile, in my practice, I would lay down there and I would direct the life force to that mold or to that tumor. And I outlined it with a pencil, because if it seriously grew quickly, I would go to see a doctor. I wouldn't hesitate. But what happened was, through a series of days, it began to shrink. So that brought my curiosity up to understanding that there's more to life, more to healing than I have known at all. So that created the curiosity for eventually wanting to start a Center for Healing Arts, which came later. So that's how that started, Terry.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but so how did you direct that energy, or what is there a particular technique that you used, or is there something that you can just briefly tell us about that helped you to direct that energy?
Yeah. Okay. There's nothing magical about it. It's just it's like in yoga, you learn how to control your breathing, and you're in partnership. Now you're doing conscious breathing. Well, it's the same way with the light force. You can the energy that that runs through our body and through all life. You learn to appreciate it, and you can, through your imagination, you direct it to any place you want. Now, in this place, I directed. In fact, I find that has helped me throughout life, that whole process, because I go through my body every night when I lay down there and make sure that it's, I feel everything. And my amazing thing about feelings is it's good to acknowledge them. When we don't acknowledge them, they sometimes keep pestering us and develop into something else. But acknowledging our energy or our feeling nature is important as acknowledging our intellectual nature.
So it sounds to me, Charlie, like you formulated an intent to move this energy. And in your imagination, you move the energy to the point where you wanted it. And it sounds like you just all of a sudden decided it was going to heal another part of your intent. Does that make sense? Does that follow your methodology?
Yes, and biblically be done according to your belief. And what I've discovered about our belief system is they hamper us or they help us. And some of we examine our belief systems, we're held in a cage. We don't look beyond that. We can't see anything beyond that. But sometimes we find we release that belief. We no longer have to hold on to it and cherish it. Then we open up spiritual awareness. And I think that's a big part of the spiritual journey.
So I don't hear you saying that if you don't heal, it's your fault. So, what would be the occasions where someone would direct this energy with their imagination, and why would they not heal, do you think?
Okay, that's a good question. Because over my lifetime, there's things I've been able to heal and things I haven't been able to heal. And for that part, it's like a mystery. It goes beyond what I think we can discuss here. Because I've examined my consciousness about that, the important thing that I've learned is when we participate in the healing process, it's like at some point we release and let go. If we need to do that, because ultimately it's something inside of us, it's something universal that's, that does the healing. We just get out of the way of it. And I think sometimes when we're stuck in a disease or a dilemma, we may not even find our way out of it in this lifetime. But the value of a spiritual practice like yoga is that you're not at effect of it. It doesn't run your life. It's just a part of your experience.
I like the way you say that. It's a part of your experience. Because I think so many spiritual disciplines, at least throughout the years, they have almost chastised someone for not being able to heal as though it were their fault. And I think what we understand is that when someone doesn't heal, there's other reasons for it, right? We are working using our will in accordance with God's will or with the higher power's will or the universal will, however you want to look at that. And so we can't always know what the right outcome should be, but we always benefit from working with that will and healing, because healing doesn't always come from physical healing. Sometimes it's emotional healing, sometimes it's mental healing. Are Can you say more about that?
Yes, yes. There's two things. One, I eventually became a practitioner of spiritual healing, as in we call it science of mind. Um, and one time I was called into a hospital down in La Jolla with a woman I had casually known, and she family requested me to go down there. And when I got there, she was pretty much comatose. Uh, but when I put my hands on her, my hands became sensitive, or not all the time, but sometimes very sensitive to what was going on in a person's body. And what I discovered was she had like a blockage or a tumor or something in her neck that through that prana, life force energy that was transmitted through me to her, it dissolved that tumor or whatever it was in her neck so that she had then, she was more at peace. Now, she did make her transition eventually, but I think that helped remove some of the pain that or the blockage that she was experiencing. Okay, let's go back to yoga. What I discovered one morning when I got up from my towel, the session was over, I sat on the edge of my bed and I said to myself, God, what's the meaning of life? And to my amazement, I heard an inner voice. And I don't mean a conversation of my mind chatter. I meant an inner voice I had never heard before or since. And the answer came up was startling. What is the meaning of life? And it said, seek the resemblance of God. Whoa. So what do you do with that? So I went into the kitchen with my wife feeding my three kids who were about middle school age and said, Dear, I just heard a voice that might be God. Says, hey, don't bother me right now. I'm feeding the kids. So I went into my office and I found a dictionary, and Webster said, I wanted to know everything perfectly. I didn't want to miss a beat. What does resemblance mean? And it's French and it means the same as. Wow. So what do you do with finding out what's the same as God? So that put me on a remarkable journey to get to where I am now.
Well, it sounds to me, Charlie, like your biggest input into your journey, frankly, was that you were open. Because it sounds like you didn't question when you heard voices that came from your understanding of God. You didn't question, instead, you began to search. And so your openness is what moved you along your journey. Does that make sense for you? Is that accurate?
Yeah, events along the way that give you a profound sense of something that's behind the scenes of everything. Definitely. Now, what it did do for me, you know, I've had dyslexia as later found out. That's why it was difficult for me to read books and get through college, and I would just learn to force myself to read, economics or journals that were important to my career. But this changed everything. I started looking for books that from saints and sages that had experience with the resemblance of God. What does God mean to them? So, like a thirsty person, I went to the well of understanding from other spiritual leaders and teachers throughout history. What did they find out? What does God mean to them?
If, as a new person on this journey, what is there one source or one book that you might recommend to them that might help them to open their minds the way that yours was opened?
Wow. Well, yes, I would say the Science of Mind book is a compilation of lectures that Ernest Holmes, who was a vociferous reader, who he read everything and saw that behind the scenes of creation, everybody was saying essentially the same things in a different language. So he was able to synthesize it and put it out to audiences of 5,000, which appreciated it in the early 20th century. So I was attracted through friendship. I found out I could learn something more about science of mind. So his textbook, it's called Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. It's a fundamental teaching on the grounding in spiritual being.
So, Charlie, are you somebody do you follow Science of Mind, or do you follow other kinds of theories and other kinds of processes in becoming the spiritual person, the wisdom person that you are?
Yeah. Yeah, my understanding of spirituality is having an open mind. And I want to be open. And if nothing else, Science of Mind helped me to understand not to get locked into what we might call false beliefs, or beliefs that restricted our ability to advance or move beyond to where we were. So to answer your question, yes, I've explored many forms of spirituality, many disciplines, and many teachings, and they've all assisted me on my journey.
And I think your belief in input from many different sources has led us to the Madonna Interfaith Community. Do you want to say just a brief little bit about the Madonna Interfaith Community and our focus of divine love?
Good point. Good point. I think because of my parochial school and Catholic upbringing, I was raised by nuns, and one was St. Mary's School, and the other was St. Teresa. So there were two spiritual beings, women, that were important to my life as a youngster, as a child growing up. And somehow that has always interested me. So I've attended many of the places where Mother Mary has appeared throughout history, and it was like something I needed to do. And so one of the places I attended was Magicoria, which was over 40 years ago, and she was appearing then to 6 visionaries. And to my amazement, 40 years later, it's still going on, and the amount of people worldwide that have gone there is tremendous. So I'm not alone on seeking out answers and people looking for solutions, and we look anywhere. So Mother Mary, Arnold Michael, who was also a doctor of religious science, and I'll get into that story some other time, but he became a mentor for me, and he started a Church of the Talking Pines and started developing a newsletter called the Madonna Ministry. And eventually I took over that ministry, and I changed the name from Talking Pines legally to the Madonna Ministry, even though others were saying, oh, you shouldn't do it. It sounds too Catholic, or it sounds too much like the Madonna, the singer, you know. And I'm sure that's all true, but from our perspective, the Mary, the mother of Jesus, is like an ascended master. She's a wonderful teacher. And somehow she's involved in the backdrop of our, what we call the Madonna Ministry.
And so there is no one faith of the Madonna Ministry, and there is no one dogma other than we believe in divine love in all of its forms. And so
Exactly. And you know, we have dogma in almost every walk of life, not just religious walk of life, where it becomes ritualistic and we repeat things over and over. And it doesn't matter if it's a religion or if it's a political system, it doesn't matter historically. But what I've learned from dogma is not to be tied to it. Dogma is like it's already passed. Dogma is history. It's following a particular order or event of things, and that's kind of important. I'm not dismissing it's important for us to have an orderliness to our life. But what I'm saying is, if we're tied to dogma, it's like being tied to a stake. Until we're freed from that, then we're not open-minded. And being open-minded to what God has in mind for us or through us has been the key, I guess, to my later life.
Great, Charlie. It's about time for us to conclude this session, but I'd like to conclude with, I know that you're very well read. What book are you reading right now? And tell us a little bit about it.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's a book that'll blow some people's minds, I'm sure. It's called the God and UFOs, and I'm just briefly into it, but when I looked into it, it's so scientifically based and spiritually endowed that it fascinates me because I too have been involved in UFO understanding and experiences.
Okay. So thank you, Charlie. Any parting words for anyone who might be listening to this for this session?
Yeah. I'm so delighted that you're here, Teresa, Terry, Marie. You know, it's no coincidence that your name has is inspired by the two teachers that I had in going to St. Mary's and the Church of Our Little Flower, Teresa. In our journeys, it's interesting that there's so much more to us than we understand or can possibly grasp. But there's I would say, we're not controlled in that sense, but we are spiritually endowed, and that's been going on forever. And somehow, something brings us together into a relationship or starting a ministry or working together. There's something fundamental that's in us that has brought us together, and I appreciate that and your support. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. I wasn't looking for that, but thank you for that. So that's the first session of Talks with Charlie. So next time we'll be talking about Arnold Michael. We'll be talking about Charlie's UFO experience. So hope you tune in again and visit with us in just a little bit. Until then, may you always be a blessing to the world, and may the world always bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.